Once upon a time, in a small village nestled between rolling hills, there lived a poor widow and her son, Jack. They owned a small cottage and a cow named Milky White, which was their only source of income. Every morning, Jack would take the cow to the village to sell its milk to their neighbors. But one year, the land suffered from a severe drought, and Milky White's milk began to dry up. Soon, there was no milk left, and Jack and his mother were growing hungrier by the day. One morning, Jack's mother said with a heavy heart, "Jack, we have no choice but to sell Milky White. Take her to the market and see if you can get a good price for her." Jack didn't like the idea of parting with their beloved cow, but he understood they needed the money to survive. So, he set off toward the market, leading Milky White by her rope. As he walked along the road, Jack encountered a strange old man dressed in a tattered cloak. "Good morning, young lad," said the old man. "And where might you be heading with that fine cow?" "I'm taking her to market," Jack replied. "We need to sell her so we can buy food." The old man eyed the cow, then looked back at Jack with a gleam in his eye. "I have an offer for you, my boy. Instead of selling your cow for mere coins, why not trade her for these?" He opened his hand to reveal 5 shiny beans. Jack stared at the beans in disbelief. "Beans? But I need money to buy food, not beans." "Ah," said the old man, with a wink. "These aren't ordinary beans. These are magic beans. Plant them in the ground tonight, and by morning, they'll grow into a beanstalk that reaches up to the sky. Who knows what wonders await you at the top?" Jack hesitated, but the old man's words intrigued him. After a moment of thought, he decided to take the risk. He handed Milky White's robe to the man and took the beans in exchange. With excitement and hope, Jack ran home to show his mother. When he arrived, he proudly held out the beans and explained the deal he had made. But instead of being pleased, his mother was furious. "You foolish boy!" she cried. "How could you trade our only cow for these worthless beans? Now we'll surely starve." In her anger, she threw the beans out the window and sent Jack to bed without supper. Jack lay in his bed, feeling ashamed and sad. He had hoped to help his mother, but it seemed he had only made things worse. As Jack slept, however, something magical began to happen outside. The beans, once scattered in the soil, started to grow. They grew and grew, reaching higher and higher until they formed a massive beanstalk that disappeared into the clouds. The next morning, Jack awoke to find the giant beanstalk towering outside his window. Remembering the old man's words, Jack's curiosity got the better of him. He decided to climb the beanstalk and see where it led. Up, up, up he climbed, higher and higher, until at last he emerged above the clouds. To his amazement, Jack found himself standing in front of a grand and enormous castle. The castle was made of stone, and its walls stretched so high that they seemed to touch the sky itself. Jack approached the gates and, with a mix of excitement and fear, entered. Inside the castle, everything was gigantic. The tables, chairs, and even the doors were built for someone much larger than Jack. He wandered through the vast halls until he came to the kitchen, where a giant woman was busy preparing a meal. Jack hid behind a large pot and watched as she worked. The giantess hummed to herself as she stirred a bubbling cauldron of stew. Suddenly, she stopped and sniffed the air. "Fee-fi-fo-fum," she muttered. "I smell the blood of an Englishman." Terrified, Jack ducked lower behind the pot, but the giantess didn't seem to notice him. Instead, she called out to her husband, the giant, who soon stomped into the kitchen. He was enormous, with a thick beard and booming voice. "Wife," he growled, "what's for supper?" "I'm starving." The giantess served him a plate of food, and the giant sat down at the table to eat. After his meal, he called for his golden harp. The harp, which could play music on its own, began to strum a soothing melody. As the giant listened to the music, he soon fell asleep in his chair. Seeing his chance, Jack crept out from his hiding place. He noticed that the giant had placed a golden goose on the table, which laid an egg of solid gold. Jack's eyes widened at the sight. "If I take that goose, we'll never be poor again," he thought. As quietly as he could, Jack grabbed the golden goose and ran out of the castle. He raced back to the beanstalk and began to climb down. Just as he was halfway down, however, the giant awoke with a roar. Fee-fi-fo-fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman. Where is he? The giant saw that the golden goose was missing and immediately knew Jack had taken it. Enraged, he chased after Jack, but being so large and heavy, the giant's movements were slow and lumbering. Jack hurried down the beanstalk, the golden goose clutched tightly in his arms. When he reached the ground, he called for his mother. "Mother, quick! Bring me the axe." His mother, still bewildered by the sight of the giant beanstalk, handed Jack the axe. With all his strength, Jack swung the axe at the base of the beanstalk, chopping it down. As the beanstalk began to tremble, the giant, who was still climbing down, lost his grip and fell from the great height. He crashed to the ground with a thunderous thud, and that was the end of the giant. Jack and his mother rejoiced. They now had the golden goose, which laid eggs of solid gold every day. They were no longer poor and lived happily ever after in comfort and plenty. And so, Jack's adventure brought him and his mother not only wealth, but also the wisdom to be cautious with whom they trusted and the courage to seize opportunities when they arose.